Hi, my name is Cloete, and welcome to another segment of Raw and Uncut on the Abrasive Conversations platform. So in this particular segment, I want to speak about inequality, and I hope throughout this particular segment that I will not get emotional and that I will not get too passionate about this particular subject. So inequality in South Africa. I don't know if you are aware, but there was a recent report that came out with regards to inequality in South Africa, and that South Africa is the most unequal country in the whole world. And it's not the first time that such a report came out. It is now a regular thing in the media that South Africa is the most unequal. It has become rhetorical. It has become almost comical how these media houses and even politicians are using it in their speeches. So for me, it is something close to my heart because I know that inequality in South Africa has a specific historical past. So there's a history that sometimes we like to forget when we speak about inequality in South Africa. So many of these politicians and people, when they speak about inequality, they do not offer solutions. And when they do offer solutions, it's the same old narrative. And that narrative is that South Africa's economy is growing smaller and smaller, and it's for that reason that people are unemployed and that people are not getting jobs, and because it doesn't get jobs, they stay poor, and that contributes to the inequality. The other part of that narrative is the kind of colonial economic narrative that came about, that South Africa is still largely a colonial economy where Western countries and especially superpowers are extracting the vast amount of resources from the South African economy and then kind of sell it back to South Africa at high profits. Both of those arguments, to a certain extent, and those narratives are valid, and they are pointing us in some direction, but is it pointing us in the right direction? So I would like to offer a different approach to this specific thing, and I want us to ask this question: how can we fix it? How can we fix inequality in South Africa? And if we want to fix inequality in South Africa, we have to recognize that apartheid came about to increase the standard of living of white people at the cost of non-white people in South Africa. So that's the first thing. So I know already how people would respond to this particular question. So Jacob, the acts of 1994 that came after 1994, like your affirmative action, your broad-based economic empowerment, isn't that kind of corrective measures that supposedly decrease the gap, the income inequality gap between the black people and white people based on that specific reality? And I would say you are right. Those acts have improved many black, colored and Indian people's lives in South Africa. But once again, did those specific acts help the vast majority of non-white people in South Africa? And to me, that's not the case. That's not what I see. So how can we fix this if the strategies and things that we put in place hasn't helped us that much before? So allow me to put one or two on the table. So the first one I would say is that we have to start at our education system. So that's the first line of call for me. We have to think about what type of learners and graduates we are producing in South Africa. When someone gets a matric in South Africa with a 34% average, do you confidently as a South African think that that teenager is ready for the world of work, and that the education system have empowered that specific teenager to be a flourishing citizen in South Africa? If you can answer that question honestly, and if you say that, if you honestly can believe that that's a yes to that question, then you're not living in the same South Africa that I'm living. So we all know the answer to that question is no. Our education, our basic education system doesn't help anyone to flourish after matric. It allows them to get to a certain extent, or a small number of people allow them to get into the university system. And this brings me to higher education. So, and this is another question. If a graduate finishes at university, how likely is that graduate to be employed in the economy? And over the past coming of years, it has become less and less graduates that are getting absorbed in the formal economy. But the reality is that the number of graduates is so small that the vast majority of youth in South Africa is still unemployed. Even if let's say hypothetically speaking, there's an 85% employment rate. So 85% of employments get employed after graduation. That's just still a drop in the ocean with a vast number of unemployed young people in South Africa. So what happens to these young people when the university cannot address the vast amount of education backlog in South Africa, because the capacities in higher education is just so much that it can only skill so many people, and after they skill, there's an economy that cannot absorb them. So what do we have to do then with regards to the education system? And this is what we have to start think about as South African is, how do we tackle inequality in South Africa from an educational point of view? Is there a future? And this is the question that the education system needs to think about. So even basic education and higher education, this is the question you guys have to think about. What is the future that we are preparing these young people for with the current education? If it's not a future that is based on equal or higher human values, and we're setting these youngsters up for failure, then we have to do something about it. And then the question is, how do we fix it? How do we fix the education system that will help these young people to become citizens in South Africa? And once they become citizens and they helps with producing, using their labor and their energy as young people, and they start producing artworks, innovation, entrepreneurship, whatever you can think, research, whatever you can think, these young people start producing, it's only then that I think we will start seeing a different type of South African society. So we'll have to go to the root cause in South Africa. And I think the root cause in South Africa is education. So that's just the one. I would put another one on the table, and I would say that is racism in South Africa. Racism that favor a certain group of people over another group of people. So you apply for a specific job and you get it, you don't get it because you're either not the right sex or the right gender, or you do not look or value or doesn't have the same type of values as the dominant group within those organizations. So that's the second one. It's something that we have to face. If you are sitting around the table and you're employed, and all of the people around you in that specific table is the so-called colored people in South Africa, and there's no black or Indian people there, you need to feel uncomfortable. If you sit around a table and the majority of the people around that table is white, then you need to feel uncomfortable in South Africa, because that's not the kind of non-racialism that our constitution set out. And I think the final root cause that I would put on the table is that companies are exploiting South Africans. They're exploiting the pain and the suffering of South Africans. People will take security and domestic jobs and take the basic salary because they are so poor that will alleviate them for some time. For example, I take my laundry on a weekly basis to a small laundry here where I live, and like I normally do, I speak to people, and I said to them, I'm so broke that I will not come back the next time. And she actually, the person who did the laundry, saying is that I must please come back the next time because they need this. Even though they don't get a lot of money, and this is what you say, ons werk vir die pot en transport. But it means in English, we are working for transport and for food. That's the only thing. So there is no money left to put their children to school or save for a future. They're only working to survive. So companies who is chasing a bottom line that pays the employees only for transport and food, you are failing it. And if you extract the vast majority of wealth in South Africa and put it in some offshore account where the government or someone doesn't have access to it or to tax it, shame on you. You are part of that. You're part of the problem. You're part of the inequality problem, not just in South Africa, but many of these countries that has been affected by colonialism. So I hope that the next time we see a report like South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, that we'll ask ourselves, how do we fix it? And that we will not go to the narratives that is already there, economic growth and a colonial economy. What we need to find is ways to fix the problem, because the measures that we currently have in place is not helping us much. So thank you very much for your support. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. I appreciate everyone who comment, like, share and subscribe. You are the ones that I appreciate a lot, and those who are joining in the discussion and sharing the comments, I appreciate you just as much. And those who just watch, like, and I appreciate you. I just appreciate you. So now this section is done, and I hope to see you next time again, or you see me next time again. I never know how to end this raw and uncut sections, but please forgive me. It's still new to me. Until we see each other again.